Okay, I'm ready to roll. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, July the 17th. This is the Board of County Commissioners work session, and the first item on our agenda is Our Valley, Our Voices presentation. If you gentlemen would like to come up, we can always bring up another chair if there's going to...
At the chair here?
Yeah. And then your microphone has to have a red light on, and it needs to be pointed at you, close to you. And then if you just introduce yourself for the public, we can go ahead. Thank you, Tim.
Good afternoon. My name's Tim Whitsitt. I'm here at the table with Michael McVoy, Jennifer Riffle, and Raul Gowries. We're all part of what is known for better or worse as Our Valley, Our Voice, and we appreciate your taking the time to talk to us this afternoon. I know you've got a lot of time. We probably won't take up all that much time, but we thought it was very important that we get an opportunity to come up and talk to you this afternoon. I guess I'd lead off by just letting you know, who are we? Well, for lack of better word, we're a steering committee, rabble-rousers, activists, if you will. The four of us, Ken Ransford's been very closely involved. Joe Edwards has been involved, although neither of them could be here this afternoon. Kathy Click and a couple of others have been meeting actually on a fairly regular basis on issues in the Mid-Valley, including this one, which involves the potential that the Roaring Fork Valley side of Eagle County de-annex from Eagle County and attach itself to Pitkin County. That's what we're here to talk to you about. And I guess the first thing I would say when I'm introducing ourselves, we are a steering committee, but it's not just us, and I can understand maybe a little skepticism. Okay, 3 people think this is a great idea, so what? But in fact, we've done a very limited amount. We didn't want to spend a whole lot of time because we don't know exactly what the process is going to be or what's going to be required. But just in the course of a few hours out in front, I think it was Whole Foods, we've got 50 names that signed on a petition from residents in this area. And quite frankly, the experience, I think, for all of us has been we cannot talk to anyone on this side of the hill who doesn't say, yeah, do it. This is a great idea. Why not? Immediately people signed on. There's not an issue. So this has, believe me, tremendous support in this valley for, I think, a number of different reasons, and maybe others can talk to it. I mean, the most simple is nobody wants to drive over to Eagle for jury duty. Getting cars registered, we do have registration in the Mid-Valley, but the fact is there is a community of interest between us, Eagle County residents in the Roaring Fork Valley, and Pitkin that simply does not exist between us and the commissioners and the bulk of the Eagle County government over on the other side of the hill. Sure, they come over every once in a while and talk to us. We do have limited resources over here at the Eagle County Center, but it's not the same. It's certainly not the same for us. We do not feel that they understand us and our issues and our problems and can serve us nearly so well as a government who's right here just 20 miles up the road, up the highway. And I would also turn it around for you folks and say, it strikes me that this ought to be a top-line issue for Pitkin County. We are your front door. And in fact, 7 months of the year, other than the airport, and that's only 200,000 people a year, we're the only way you can get to Aspen and Pitkin County. And we're very much close to being on the verge of shutting that door down because of overdevelopment that's not being well administered, not being well regulated by our current government. And I have to say, this has got to be an issue that's a lot more of concern to you folks up here than it is to the people who drive over every once in a while from Vail. So I think this is an important issue. I think it's one that not only we are concerned about, but that the Pitkin County government and the population of Pitkin County ought to be seriously concerned with. So what do we want? Well, just as I said, we are circulating and are pushing for a process that would allow us to de-annex from Eagle County and literally the whole side of the drainage from the top of Red Table, Basalt Mountain, across Cattle Creek, across that divide to the Garfield County line, and all the way east Hagerman Pass to the county line. That just take that chunk, this whole drainage, out of Eagle County and annex it in. Now, how do we get that done? And there have been, believe me, a lot of time spent on this. When I came here as assistant Pitkin County attorney, one of the first things I was asked to do as an assistant county attorney is look at this issue. And we did, and we spent a little time with it. I think you might have, I know you've had in the past, a memo written by Jerry Dahl, who we worked with. He's an attorney from, at that time, I think he was with the Northwest Council of Governments.
Remember him?
It was back in 1984. And he wrote wrote about the process. I looked at it in 87. We looked at it again. I was with the committee in around 2000. It was looked at fairly seriously. This is a matter that keeps coming up. And it keeps coming up for a reason, because there are a lot of people who think this is an idea that's important, that can mean a lot to people. We're back again now, and I'm hoping that we can actually take this somewhere with it. The reason that we kind of spin this around, I think, is the lack of clarity about the process. There is one statute, it's an 1887 statute, and I think you got my brief memorandum on this. Apologize for legal memos, but sometimes they're helpful. As far as I can tell, that 1887 statute has never been used. The reason being, it's just totally onerous and almost unmanageable. It requires a 50% petition from the people in the area to be annexed. So in that Roaring Fork Valley area of Eagle County, that would be about, I estimate, between 4,500 and 5,500 signatures. That's a heck of a lot of signatures. And if you think about the signatures that you have to get to petition on as commissioners, what you have to get for an initiative or referendum generally, it's more in the 5 to 10% range. It's completely different than that 1887 statute provides. For that reason, I can tell you that's why nobody's ever changed counties using the statute. I think the important thing that you should think about, though, and one of the things I want to emphasize today is that statute tells you as commissioners when you are required to set a matter on the ballot for de-annexation and annexation. If we got those 4,500 signatures and presented those to Eagle County, they are mandated by that statute to put that issue on the ballot, to also notify the commissioners in Pitkin County that they've got that on the ballot, and Pitkin County is mandated then to put it on the ballot. It's when you have to act. That doesn't say anything about what you might be able to do without a mandate. And I would put it to you that you have every right and power in the world to put this on the ballot without that petition being filed. And I've cited the statutory, the jurisdiction. Basically, the CRS has changed, and now the county's powers with respect to referred matters, they say, well, look and see what municipalities have. You got the same power that municipalities have. You look in the municipalities, and the fact is, it's 3011-103.5 says, the legislative body of any municipality may, without receipt of any petition, submit a proposed or adopted ordinance or resolution or any question for a vote of the registered electors. And we dealt with this when I was with the county. You deal with it every election cycle. Come August, you start thinking about what is it we want or need to refer to the electors, because you have a very broad and general power to refer issues. Typically, it's things where you just want to get the feedback. You want to hear what they want to have to say. You can do it. And that's what we are asking you to do. Now, we're asking both counties. Right now, you guys have gotten your act together a little better. They've got some other things going on in Eagle County too, so I'm not gonna hit them too hard for that. We haven't gotten on their agenda yet. We're gonna make hopefully the same presentation to Eagle County, because obviously we're gonna need to be on the radar and on the same path in both counties to get this done. You can't just put this on the ballot, I understand, in Pitkin County and take over, nor do I expect you want to. It's going to have to be on both counties' ballots. We're presenting to both counties. We happened to get to you guys on your agenda before we got to Eagle County. We're going to be making the same argument, making the same ask to Eagle County and telling them, look, and the key here is, we're not necessarily asking you to support this or to get out in front and lead the parade. We're asking you to give us a vote. Let your people decide. This is something you ought to trust the electors on. And we truly want to do that with Eagle County and say, let us decide. If you want to, go out and campaign against us. That's not going to hurt our feelings. But give us the vote. And that's the message we want to bring to you this afternoon, is not necessarily, oh, you got to support us, you got to be out there leading the bandwagon, let us get on the ballot. Let us have a vote. Let us decide as voters where we think we belong. And that's countywide ballot all across Eagle County, all across Pitkin County. So everybody's going to have a voice in this. And it doesn't work unless we get a majority vote in both counties at the same election. That's how it goes under the constitutional provision. It does require that we have that vote. Otherwise, we're asking that the commissioners put us on the ballot. That's pretty much what I've got. I will give Phyllis a copy of
For the record.
the petition, just for the record, so that you have it. I've blatted on longer than you want. I
know Greg has a question. So.
Yeah, we'll answer questions, and I'd like to have everybody else who's here have a chance to.
So let's let Greg. Go ahead.
First of all, I've got several.
Okay.
One question: what are recent examples of an initiative, a citizens' initiative? Mic off for you? Oh, sorry. Mic on. We'll take two. What are examples of a citizens' initiative that have happened recently, or in your memory, for such a thing? Get something on the ballot. What has it taken? How often has it happened? Is this an anomaly? I'm new enough that I don't recall.
As I said, Greg, this process has, to my knowledge, never been used. Now, that doesn't mean there haven't.
I'm talking just in general.
Yeah, there have been changes of county, and all of them that we have found, and there have been 4 or 5, I think, in the last 20 or 30 years, they've all been in and around Denver and the suburban counties. All of those were done through a new statute. There were actually specific statutes passed that said, well, we're not going to do a petition, but based on this statute, Denver is going to we're going to put it on the ballot, and we're going to let them have a ballot initiative to annex DIA, which they did in 1986, I think it was. There have been similar kinds of statutory allowances. I am not aware of any initiated process or any referred process that I'm suggesting now that started out a change of county boundaries. And if you look back, and if you need a copy, I've got Jerry Dahl's memo. He's gone into it at much greater length than I did. He concludes, I'm not certain, but it appears to me that the counties have the power to put this on the ballot. None of us know of any time it has been done. The other thing
Greg
I would
was asking you anything else that's been initiated outside of county boundary changes, weren't you, Greg? Isn't that the question?
That's where I was going.
I'm trying to think of
how often
what
does it happen?
what initiated matters. I'm trying to think of of what we had. I think we had a few even when I was.
That were gathered by signature.
Either by signature or a group came to the commission and said, we think you should put this on the ballot. Why not? You know, why can't you?
I would be happy to supply you with them. I know they're out there. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Okay.
I think we had some referred matters put on the ballot by the commissioners when I was back in the days 20 years ago when I was working with the county.
Greg's got a few.
Let me finish my second
Okay,
one.
yeah.
Unless you want to, are you jumping
Well, I
in,
was
Michael?
going to comment on that. My understanding is that
Pull the mic over to you there. Oh, you got one, okay.
They just twist.
Yeah, you can just, there you go. That'll
There you
do.
go. Red light on.
I'm on, okay. My understanding is there's a big difference between home rule counties and the rest of the counties, and there's only a couple of home rule counties in the state.
There's two.
And two, that was my understanding, and the initiative process in a whole home rule is significantly different than what it is elsewhere in the state. When I talked to Eagle County about whether or not they had an initiative process, they said no. So the question of how you initiate something is a lot different because of a home rule versus statutory county.
And
Might be a question for Laura, our county
Yeah.
attorney, to answer as far as, that's a good question as far as the difference between a statutory county and a home rule as far as citizens initiatives. So Laura, can you?
Yeah. So citizens initiatives are spelled out in our home rule charter, and we have to follow that. I think the bigger question that's raised here is, as Mr. Whitsitt alluded to, there have not been successful annexations that have not followed this process, that didn't follow a separate statutory process. That is to say, anybody else who found this process too onerous has gone to the legislature, and the legislature has changed the rules to allow them to follow a different process. There is a case out there in which some citizens over in Jefferson County tried to follow this process but didn't get a petition in time to make it to the ballot, and that's the Sellers case. So whenever somebody's found the process to be too onerous, they've gone to the legislature, and the legislature has fixed it, rather than a board of county commissioners going out perhaps and navigating a different process. And I did also want to clarify the statute that was referred to, which is 3011-103.5, the county petitions and referred measures process. And as Mr. Whitsitt said, to the extent that no such procedures are prescribed by statute, charter, or the state constitution shall follow the municipal sort of rules. So there is some clarifying language in there that says, to the extent that there's no procedure that's prescribed by statute, you follow the municipal procedures. It could be argued that there is a procedure for county annexation that's prescribed by statute, and that's the procedure in the county annexation statute.
Can I follow up and just ask
Yeah,
then,
of
Laura?
course you can, Greg.
What would be the consequences if we decided to put it on the ballot? What could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
So many things can always go wrong. Let me just put that out there on anything. But if you look at some of the case law, it's entirely possible that the annexation would be void because it didn't follow the correct process. And so you're back to, you have citizens thinking that they've been annexed into a different county. They haven't. You have basically sort of a procedural mess relating to taxation and everything else. And there is a process for anyone aggrieved by the action who's affected by the action. And, if need be, we can talk about what that really means to challenge this. And if some of the previous case law says that, even before that challenge is found to be correct or incorrect, there was a finding that the annexation was invalid because it didn't follow the statutory framework. So it was void before it even started, before a court even found it to be invalid.
Okay. That
Greg, do you have more
complicates-
questions?
I
Because
have
then I
other
know
questions,
Steve has-
but I'll defer to.
Yeah, my only comment, certainly the procedure is there. First of all, it is not a mandatory procedure by its own terms. It only says if you're presented with these petitions, you must. It does not prescribe a procedure that is supposedly the only procedure. It just says in this circumstance you must take it to a vote. It doesn't say you can't take it to a vote otherwise. And I believe the referendum process and the referred matter process is different. And understand, there's initiatives that is a matter that's initiated by a petition by citizens who come in and say, we've got enough names here, put it on the ballot. We're talking about a referred matter. That means 5 votes, 5 commissioners refer it to the ballot on your own power under the statute. And I would contend you do. Now, the last thing I would say on that also is, what is your liability? What is your exposure? Well, it's none. Yeah, there will be a time potentially when...
Picken County, we know, will be sued.
Yeah, well, it could get challenged, certainly. And if it's challenged, it'll go to the courts, and the courts will decide whether this is a legitimate process or not. Are you going to spend a lot of money and a lot of time on it? I don't necessarily see that, because any vote to change the county is going to be accompanied with a process that has to go forward with respect to allocation of debt, allocation of property, and all of that, which can go forward without, while at the same time that the challenge is going forward. So I don't see a great exposure/liability to the commissioners in allowing us to have a vote.
Well, I'm going to turn it to Steve because I know Steve had a question.
Well, earlier when we were trying to think of something that was similar to this, I think that the process whereby Picken County became a home rule county probably was a similar process.
It was a county vote. I mean, home rule
County
charter
had
was
to vote
adopted.
on it. I know my
Saying was it
dad was
referred or was it
involved in it.
initiative?
And I'm sure there were citizens involved in the whole thing. I don't know whether they petitioned the commissioners or if the
I
commissioners
don't know. I don't remember.
were the ones who just decided to put it out to a vote of the people to see. And I don't know if you were the assistant county attorney at that time. You might have been.
But before my time, before I was up here, my gut feeling is I know there was the financial advisory board that early group that became the financial advisory board under the home rule charter were part of the committee. I think it was very much started this way. Whether they convinced the commissioners at that time, the 3 commissioners, to put it on the ballot as a referred matter, or whether it was initiated, I suspect it was initiated.
Yeah,
But
and
I don't know.
That's kind of the same issue, but a different issue than an annexation. Annexation is more specific, in my understanding, by the Constitution and by state statute. So we need to kind of stick to what's before us. And I'm just going to make a brief comment, and then I know you have others who want to speak. But I talked to Ken Ransford early on, like late summer, early fall, and encouraged the group to get the ducks in a row and go out and get your signatures because of the time frame. And you could have probably gotten your 4,500 or 5,500 signatures way before now. And that would have been, I think, a whole different ballgame. For me, I hear from a lot of people valley-wide, because I spend a lot of time valley-wide, who don't want this to happen. There is a sector out there who is adamant about staying, for whatever their reasons. They don't want to be part of Picken County. Maybe they're just trying to be nice to me by not telling me their specific reasons. But so for me, it's a matter of what do the people in that area to be annexed want, and that's why I myself would like to see petitions by a majority of the people who live in those neighborhoods who want to be part of Picken County. But anyway, that's my position now, regardless of the constitutionality or anything else. To me, it's a matter of the people letting us know what the people want in those neighborhoods. But that being said, time is of an essence right now, I know, for all of you. So I think that's why you're possibly looking for other opportunities to get this on a ballot this November. But
And we certainly want to hear from the people too. And if the people say, we don't want to change, well, that's the end of the story. But we want to give them that chance. We want to give
but that
all
would
of the people
wouldn't it be a vote of those little neighborhoods? It would be a vote of all the counties.
Yes.
Which to me is a different ballgame. I want to know from the people who are being directly impacted by this what they want. And if there's a majority down there who says we want to be in Picken County, that might be a different ballgame for me. But I'm only one commissioner, and as you said, we need 5. And I'm so sorry, Rachel is in Boston attending the Harvard Kennedy School, and George is in Washington, D.C., working on a grant for RAFTA. I just needed to add that, but I know Greg has more questions. Do you have more too?
I have to say, I'd really like a more thorough understanding of the economic implications. We've heard numbers bounced around about how much it costs Eagle County to have that section of the valley. What would it cost Pitkin County if we were to take it on? I've heard, $5 and $10 million a year thrown out. And what I realize is I'm not sure anyone is certain. And it'd be great to have a thorough economic study of this. There are social implications, there are political implications. I think it's fascinating, and I would support the population voting on it. I think, as you say, you want to know what the people think. That's one way, but I see Patty's point about the annexed area, might be overwhelmed in some way. But I wonder. I'm not sure if that's. I certainly don't know. The only way to be certain would be to put it to a vote.
And I would just say, as to the economic, I think that's a good point. I have my own thoughts about that, but they are my own thoughts. And we are working on getting a further analysis of county services versus tax base.
Right, and the biggest question there is the other opportunity for the people who live in that sector was, do you want less service or pay more tax? In order for us to, if Pitkin County were to be the body that had to provide those services up there, and our already fixed budget we have just for the county. So there's a lot of questions still, I think, that are out there. But I know Steve has another.
So my personal feeling on this, and I'm the one who grew up going to the school in Basalt where the county line ran through the middle of the school. So my whole life I've been aware of the problems that the people in Eagle County were having with being part of Eagle County. And I realize that there will be financial costs, and was estimated it would cost us $6 million per year in additional costs if Pitkin County took over that part of Eagle County. If we get 100 years down the road, I think everything would have smoothed over at that point, and people would be praising us as being bold and making this brilliant move to move that part of Eagle County into Pitkin County, because it would have been a logical thing to do right from the get-go, and it wasn't done because of a surveying line that was a straight line coming from the Utah border, is what our dividing line is now. I can see your point in saying that, we would be allowed to do this by what it says in the Constitution. And also, I don't think I've seen the entire wording of the CRS 30-6-105, but I see your point that we don't necessarily have to follow that procedure that's laid out in it, or that you don't have to, that the commissioners could just put it on the ballot if Eagle County also wanted to do that. Then we would get a vote of both people of both counties. I think it would probably be more powerful and more convincing to the rest of the electorate if you did do the petition and got 6,000 signatures and presented them to the counties, and that would, I think, carry a more powerful message to the rest of the people of Pitkin and Eagle County who would then be voting on it, showing that there's this huge number of people who really want out of Eagle County really badly. And if we just put it to a vote, I think you would have a very hard time convincing people to vote for it because of the financial considerations being a huge one. All the brain damage we would have to go through in the whole process of the transition, like it would be completely different commissioner districts, for instance, would be just one of many different things that would have to be done in the process of making the transition. And a lot of people might say it's just not worth it going through the brain damage to do this process. So I think you would have a real uphill battle doing the convincing of the electorate of two different counties. I'm still willing to give you the I would be willing to put it on the ballot myself and let the voters decide.
Well, thank you. We certainly think, I mean, I don't want to underplay. This is a difficult procedure at best. And not just talking about the political, the vote. There are a lot of technical issues that would have to get worked out between the two counties before this ever came about. But believe me, every one of us here and the folks generally, I think, in the Mid-Valley, think this is well worthwhile, and we would be much better served by changing our government. That's kind of a basic thing. Get the consent of the governed here. That's what we're looking at. And that's why we want to vote on it. I want to open the floor, make
I
sure
think,
Jan.
one sec, let me see if Greg, did you have more questions? And then Tim, I'll let you.
Only that I think regardless of whether you put it to a petition and you do a petition drive and you try to go out and get 4,000 to 5,000 signatures, or if we say we're going to put it on the ballot, it's still going to cost a lot of money either way, because there is a huge public relations or outreach push. I think you'd need a financial analysis that goes deeper than what anyone has done so far. It's going to be an expensive thing. I guess the question I have is, do you have the resources? Do you think you can muster the resources to do that? If, say, we put it on the ballot, what's next? How would you go about?
I have a couple of responses to that. The first is, the only thing that's required under the Constitution for this ballot to go forward is that we be able to pay for the survey, to survey the area for the ballot questions, so that people would know what the district is.
But he's more talking the financial analysis.
Yeah.
That's a
Now,
good point.
and as far as that goes, there's no question in my mind. But what we can afford the survey. The survey would be fairly inexpensive, according to the surveyors I've talked to, because
Right,
that's a
but the
very
financial
well
analysis.
documented line already.
Okay.
As far as the rest of it, we certainly don't have that money sitting around. It's not in a bank account. It's not on hand. We've had very, very liberal and broad financial support and response from the Mid-Valley area in our efforts to date. Nowhere near what it will take, but I feel confident that we can get it done. I mean, as it becomes real, as this is discussed, I feel optimistic.
Tim, has anybody, just real quick, Greg, I'm going to jump in, because has anybody talked about the Eagle County buildings having, I spent a lot of time there this past week with the past couple of weeks, not only the Eagle County building, but their Public Works building. Would Pickens County have to buy those? Because Pickens County doesn't have any money to buy those.
There's definitely,
Yeah.
that's part of the process.
That needs to be.
Working out.
I've just thought about sitting here, and that's something that definitely needs to come into the financial analysis. We're having, we've been doing some major building issues here in our county as it stands, and that would be a huge hit to the Pickens County, because those buildings couldn't just sit empty, and they are Eagle County's building on Eagle County land. So
No, that's part of the process.
that would be a big step in that process. But let's get back to, can we let the rest of the presenters, because
Yeah,
we're
please go ahead.
moving through our hour quickly.
Okay, I wanted to add a couple of points if I could. One on the financial implications. One, I've been raising some money for the group as we need it, and I have a number of people who have committed larger amounts of money, but we haven't needed it yet. So I actually think that there is an ability to support it financially. I've also been in contact with a local person that you're probably familiar with, but we don't have a contract with him, who has done annexation borderline changes in Washington State. He's done a couple of them, and he's given us an estimate as to what it would take to do an entire financial analysis of the impacts of it. It's Paul Mentor, if, you know.
We know Paul really well.
And he has experience in this area, and he's agreed to work with us and give us a benefit of the doubt, and he's given us some preliminary numbers without even really knowing exactly what it would take. But I can say what his approach would be is not to try and figure out what an increase in service would cost, but would be to do an analysis based on existing service levels. And I don't think there's, we wouldn't be coming to you and asking you to increase the service.
I don't know. I'm talking about would the people who live there be willing to take a decrease in service, but an increase in taxes to pay for the same level of service. I wasn't saying anything about increasing their services, just to clarify that.
Well, some of the financial analysis that I believe Steve is referring to, in fact, assumes some increase in service. The one piece I know is that there are 3 sheriffs over there, and that analysis budgeted for 7. And so there's some places that just need to go down to the grassroots and here's what the existing service levels are, here what the tax
Right.
revenues are, and do an analysis. And we're prepared to initiate that study and pay for it, and we haven't wanted to pull the trigger on it unless we know we're going to be going to a ballot.
Right, so
So that's one. Another thing I want to throw out, and I'm not the lawyer here, that statute, the 1887 statute, is extraordinarily vague. I have talked to Eagle County, the clerk over there, about what's the number? How many signatures would we actually need? And she said, no clue. There's ambiguity in the languages. There's reference to taxpayers. It doesn't specify whether it's sales tax, property tax, some other kind of tax. There are lots of cases where somebody owns a piece of property and the Eagle County people said that even if their spouse is not on the deed, that spouse would also be able to be registered and counted as that 50%. So there's enough ambiguity in that statute that you might get it challenged no matter what, even if you could finally determine what the number is. And it apparently opens the door to people who don't live in the county being able to vote because they own property in the county.
and they are taxpayers.
And they're taxpayers. And there's no way of knowing what those definitions are, partly because it's an 1887 statute that
Right.
doesn't really use the same language that's available or used in current statutory work.
But the fact
And-
is, it's still a statute. Even though it's from the 1887, it is still a statute standing on the books. And we have to figure out how that statute applies. We can't just say, it's old, we don't have to listen to it anymore, because it's still, for whatever reason, happens to be a state statute.
And I think the language that you're referring to is the tax-paying electors. The statute says the majority of the tax-paying electors can petition Eagle County to allow annexation into Pitkin County. There are some other statutory provisions that do refer to tax-paying electors in the special districts and some other stuff. So there is some language that gives some indication of what tax-paying electors may be defined as. It's not defined by this statutory provision, and it is somewhat of an open question, but there is other language that gives indications of what that can mean. And my understanding is that both Janice in Pitkin County as well as the Secretary of State have started to look at this issue, and there is some guidance on it. It's not completely clear, the same way no portion of this process is completely clear.
Perfect. Okay, please continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, that's fine. I mean,
Clarify
that's why we're here, is to have a discussion, hopefully.
thank
And
you.
one other comment I wanted to make before I had a little bit of a different take. There are actually 3 entities that would have to approve this voting. It'd be the Eagle County part of the Roaring Fork Valley as its own entity, which can be delineated because of the precincts that are on this side of the mountain compared to the rest of Eagle County. Then Eagle County as a whole and Pitkin County as a whole. And we understand that. So it's actually 3 separate entities that would have to be able to do it. Interestingly enough, the one, if you use that statute, the one that you would know, because it would take more than a majority of signatures, you know how that section, if those petition signatures were raised, it would by definition show that the majority already wants it without even needing a vote. Because
they may just want to vote on it. They may not be telling you how they're going to vote.
Well, I understand that. Yeah. But nonetheless, the work that's necessary to do it, you're pretty much needing a majority of the
Right.
county in order to be able to do it. And we think that there's a lot of reason for that they would support that. And that's my transition. one thing outside of the legality and even to a degree out of the politics, the reality is Pitkin County offers right now as many, and in some cases more, services that Eagle County offers to our part of the county down there. When I was evacuated a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, the call came from Pitkin County, not Eagle County.
Pitkin alert.
And, you know, as Steve mentions, there is no Eagle County School District over here. There is no Eagle County Fire Department over here. They have very minimal services in general compared to what they offer in the rest of their county. Pitkin County actually, I mean, I don't know what the number offhand is, but I'm sure there's hundreds of students who attend the BOCC schools as, even though they're residents of Pitkin County. And so I think one of the things that really is important and really is a sense that I would hope that you would be able to, you know, to hear is that you're already offering in many ways almost as many of the services as would be needed as Eagle County is under the current structure. And a lot of people look at it. I mean, when, you know, yes, there are people who might not want to be part of Pitkin County because they might want more opportunity for more growth. I think you can safely say you could count us as not wanting more growth. Eagle County's rate of growth is the second highest in the state of any county in the last 30, 40 years. You know, it's south of Denver. Douglas County is the fastest growing. The state of Colorado is growing about 2.2%. Eagle County is growing 4%. So you have to look at a county that is, they're second in the state, and they're committed, as I think we've just seen with the tree farm approval and the rezoning process, the remaster planning process they're going through right now, where they're increasing densities. And looking at Highway 82, is anything within range of Highway 82 needs more density, and they're packing it, and they're going to pack it on both sides of the highway. And that's not good. You ask any of the people who commute to work where the worst part of the valley of the commute is, it's Elgibel.
They say the entrance to Aspen from what we hear, so.
Oh, well, okay, by the time you get all the way up here, but in terms of the commute, it's a huge issue. So when you look at our communities, when you look at Eagle County as part of the Roaring Fork Valley, we're part of the Roaring Fork School District, we're part of the BOCC Fire District, we're part of all these local entities that are providing us what it takes for us to be able to live, and yet we are subject to a political group that is imposing a level of growth and imposing it. I mean, when the tree farm came up for approval, it was unanimously recommended for rejection by the Roaring Fork Planning Commission.
You have to remember what our comments were on that, but let's try to keep it back to the annexation. And real quick though, people who are in the Roaring Fork School District pay a tax for that service, as they do for the BOCC Fire and Rescue. So it's different than supplying road and bridge, where you don't, you know, it's different because they pay a tax for those services. It's outside of the Pitkin County jurisdiction for those services. But I think Steve wanted to jump in real quick, and I didn't mean, but just so, because I know you have two other members who wish to speak.
You know, one question I had, it would be more for staff, is if we put this on the ballot, would there be a financial cost to us to put it on the ballot? Besides, the ballot would be a little bit bigger and it would be a paper thing.
If we initiated the ballot question, we would be funding it. If they initiated it, they would be funding.
What do you mean by funding?
To put it on the ballot, the cost that goes.
Would
to
there
putting
be a
the question.
financial cost to us to put it on the ballot?
Yeah,
at
it's
this
the same as anything that the BOCC were to put on the ballot. But we're not talking about substantial costs, you know, but there would be a cost, yes.
Because we already have a ballot. It's not like we're creating
Yes.
a special vote.
And how much?
I don't know the answer to that.
Kind of figure?
I can't. We can ask Janice, and she'll have the ballpark
But a
for you.
citizens
But I don't have it
initiative
for you.
question, the citizens pay the cost, whoever initiates it. If the county refers it, then the county pays the minimal cost. But if you have a special election, it's a significant cost.
Yeah.
When you're just attaching it to a ballot, it's a minor
Oh,
cost.
no, it would be, I mean, it would have to be in a general election, I believe, where you're already sending the ballot out.
Well, so, I mean, that's an open question. The reason I think that there's been a push to have you guys refer this is that it's a general election year. Well, the statute that speaks to annexation suggests it needs to be done in a general election year. But if we're throwing that statute out, then we're in a whole new world.
So we
And
could be pushed to a special election, which would be rather expensive.
there's not a lot of guidance there. But again, there's not a lot of guidance there, and there's perhaps exposure to the Board of County Commissioners that there isn't a lot of guidance and that there hasn't been a clear process followed. So that's the exposure that you guys would be taking
And
on.
a point of clarification from Steve's question, it would have to be initiated or referred first by Eagle County for us to then. We don't know that either.
Well, so, I mean, what these presenters are asking you to do is refer it on your own, separate from Eagle County. It looks like in the paperwork they've submitted that they're similarly asking Eagle County to refer it as well. It seems unwise to refer it if Eagle County's not going to refer it.
It'd be a moot point.
So,
Plus, we'd have to do it by a vote of 5 members of our board, which obviously we don't have here. And obviously, that's a different discussion with all 5.
yeah.
Well, this is a work session anyway.
Well,
but-
we can't make a vote, but I'm
Right.
just saying that would be an interesting discussion with all 5. I think we know the positions.
Second question would be, what is the procedure? Do we have to vote on a resolution?
You'd have to have the
regular
language.
meeting in order to put it on the ballot?
Yes, you'd have to have the language, all of that set.
And it would take all 5 members to support?
Yes.
So it's
Well,
not
we
just
wouldn't
a-
necessarily have to have all members, but
Yes.
we'd have to have.
No, you have to have all 5 members support the question.
To refer it?
To put it on, to refer it to a ballot?
I don't know, I'd have
I
to look.
think it's a majority. Well,
That would be a
That's
question
the
to
question,
find out.
because I heard we have to have a
Procedure
majority. I mean,
whereby
we have to have
how
all
we
5.
put something on the ballot.
Yeah.
But also, time is of the essence here, because we don't have that much time before our ballot is finalized.
We understand that, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to,
Yeah.
you know, we're a little bit unprepared. It came up a couple of weeks ago in another work session in the county, and we just
Right.
actually weren't able to respond. That's why we wanted to get back on your agenda, talk to you about
Right.
it now. And again, yeah, we realize the time
Right,
is
and, well,
going
my
quickly.
position right now would be, we have to wait to see what Eagle County does, before I think this board can, I mean, I just think that's where that's where I stand on this, because that's what we were hoping today would be, and because of the fire, we understand, but still, I think it's important that we hear where Eagle County commissioners stand on this before we, as a Board of Commissioners, at least for me, take any action.
So meeting personally with the Eagle County Commissioners, they say the exact same thing as you, Patty. I want to hear what Pitkin County does. We've been able to get on the agenda of Pitkin County sooner, so now we can report back. And it's this kind of parent trap matchmaking. What does mom say
Right, but
versus what
since we
dad
only have
says?
3 today, you're not gonna really hear anything from us as to what direction. We need to have the input from the other 2 commissioners.
Definitely. So then looking at your concerns regarding the buildings, the Eagle County
Yeah.
buildings, and the possible purchase or how that transaction would occur, speaking in unstructured meetings with Eagle County commissioners, there was a general sense of a willingness to part ways with very little financial attachment to
We'll
them.
see how that works out, because
Right.
I've heard opposite from that, so.
Sure. And then as well, looking at your concern for the taxpayer and what the implications would be financially, I researched in the town of Basalt, in Elk Run subdivision, 2 houses that are back to back, whose backyards are abut the Eagle County Pitkin County line. And looking at those 2 properties, there is a 0.5 to 3 mil difference. That's very minimal. On their property taxes, it was less than $100 difference. I cannot create the same instance for Missouri Heights because there's no properties
Right.
that. But just as an example, it's not going to be an insane hit to the taxpayer, and that's part of the education outreach.
Do you know
regarding that.
anything else, though, about any of the special, I don't want to say that, other outstanding issues of
The liabilities.
the financial liabilities for special district, well, for any outstanding debt that might be owned by Eagle County that would still have to be paid off by those folks, even if they were annexed into the county? There's been some question there, and I'm not quite sure how to phrase that, but that's been another issue, that they'd still have to pay off any incurred debt while they were property owners in Eagle County. They'd still have to be paying that off once they were property owners in Pitkin County.
Yeah.
So that's.
We
that-
frankly haven't gotten that far
Yeah,
down the
so
road.
that's
but
another question that's
there-
out there
I
and it's
mean,
confusing.
There is bonded indebtedness
Yeah.
for the Eagle County Airport that's countywide, that I think are revenue bonds, but I don't know if they're what GO
Yeah,
bonds
yeah,
the
there's
county
a-
has for which we might
Phyllis, what are
have
they
some
called?
obligation.
COP.
Certificates
Of
of participation.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some of those outstanding in Eagle. I mean, there's a lot of questions, but
Yeah.
that can be answered
There
somewhere
is,
down
and
the
that's,
line if
that's
need
what
be.
it comes down to, is we're here and we're saying, yes, there's multiple ways to govern, and definitely the best way is to use your brain, but another great way to go is to use your heart and think about the future, the next 100 years, and that's what we are driving and striving towards is, yes, we all have brains and we will use them very strongly, but it's going to take a movement from the heart.
Well, and I can relate to that, but you also have to realize as a Pickett County Commissioner, my first and foremost responsibility is to the people of Pickett County. So we need to find out where Pickett County voters and the people that we were elected to represent feel about this too, and taking on, and, it's our friends. You guys are all our friends down there, so it's a tough one. Greg, please.
That sounded like an argument to put it on the ballot.
Well, no, I'm not arguing, no, I'm just saying that we have to represent the people of Pickett
Right.
County, and they may not want it on the ballot. They may not be interested in doing this. I haven't
We
heard
don't
that.
know. I think that it seems as if the can has been kicked down the road for, 1987, 2000, something, maybe even more recently. I would love to stop kicking the can down the road. And if Eagle County needs confidence from us that we're interested in this and we'd like to see it go farther, certainly I'd be in favor of telling them that. And the one way we could do that would be to put it on an agenda for a regular meeting after we kick it around a bit more on this side, but I don't want to delay it. I don't want to say, well, we're going to have to wait to hear what they say. I don't want to go back and forth like that. I don't think that's irresponsible.
I want to wait and see what the rest of my board says. I want to see what Rachel and
Well, I know
George
they've already
say.
spoken on it.
Yeah, but I want to see with new information and all these other issues as more information is unfolding. I'm not ready to make even a thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't do that because to me that's voting. I think it's really important to have a full board discuss this. This is a
I
major
agree.
thing.
I agree.
Steve, please.
In reference to something you said, Patty, it triggered something in my mind. If this happened where the two counties were joined in, I would see that there would be facilities in the Mid-Valley that would be maintained. There would be sheriff's deputies stationed there. There would be road and bridge down there. There would be health and human services things, which would provide a lot better service for Pickett County residents who live in the Crystal Valley, who live up the Frying Pan, who live in the Basalt area, to be able to have services there and a quicker response time from the deputies who are stationed there.
Steve, that's very true, but the point
so
is,
that-
Steve, we
that's
have to
the-
fund those buildings, and how are we going to fund those buildings when
Well, I
we-
realize that,
Yeah.
but then also we have a lot of our county employees who live down valley, and I think at some point we could very much have a revolt of people just leaving employment of Pickett County because the commute is so horrendous they just don't want to come up here anymore. If their job is in Basalt or Elgibel, working in a Pickett County facility,
I don't
we'd be able to
disagree.
have easy time retaining people. They could work close to where they
Steve,
live.
we're already seeing that. We already feel that. I don't disagree with that. We have to come back to the fiscal responsibility as county commissioners. How would we fund those buildings when we have building issues up here we're having a tough time dealing with now?
Oh, I realize that's
That
one
is
of the many
tax
financial
burden.
things that we need to figure out.
Right.
But to me, there are huge number of benefits from doing the annexation. And I think it's worth giving this group the opportunity to put it out to the voters. We put it on the ballot. They're the ones who are gonna have to do the convincing.
I would like to see a petition to get it started, but we'll see where Eagle County stands
Now,
on
I
it.
know the two commissioners who are not here today, when they saw the financial things, they were like, why would we want to do this? It was like, they were sort of a thumbs down right from the get-go, was my take on George's and Rachel's position on it.
But
but
since we really
I
can't
think-
speak for them here, and their issues were financial, I think that financial information is gonna be very valuable.
I agree. I think if they're if we could understand what the next step is for financial implications, whether it's our financial advisory board or an economic consultant who can help, bring us an independent analysis of it, I would be in support of that to move it forward, certainly, so we really understand what we're getting into.
Yep.
And I want to thank you all for
Phyllis?
bringing it forward. It's a good
I'm
question.
going to bring it back to Phyllis here.
Well, just when I was looking at the basic information that John Peacock prepared, that portion of Eagle County and the Roaring Fork drainage would increase, when it's annexed, would represent 32% of the total Pickens County population. So that's a huge surge. So when you're doing the financial work, that's a piece. That's 32% of
More
a new
people.
population, more people that need services. When he looked at, this is really cursory, just looking at basic information, the post-annexation, the assessed value of the Mid-Valley would represent 7% of Pickens County's total assessed value, and 13% of sales tax collections of the total county. So those are pieces, when you look at it, adding population of 32%, 7% of assessed value, and 13% of sales tax for supporting that 32%, that's a hard financial piece. So the more information you can provide on that financial outlook would be really important.
Thank you.
Exactly. That's good stuff.
I heard that, and I appreciate you repeating it. Thank you.
So we have one more quiet gentleman sitting before.
I think all the bases have been covered. I mean, I don't have anything. I mean, I'm sure some of you know me. I've been around here for a long time, and we share a lot of things. And Patty, you said it, we're friends, but we share the same quality of life. And it's like, I don't see that. I've been involved. I've been a volunteer on their boards. They don't listen to us. They listen to their staff. We're being driven by people that have no concept what goes on over here. If you put things in perspective, their Edwards was our Elgibel.
Yeah, that's true.
Their gravel pit is now their Avon. They design around on and off ramps. We have stoplights. We gotta have a voice, and we don't have a voice. And thank you for your help at the fire.
Thank you. It was
The
quite
only
an
ones I
experience.
saw down there were Pickens County. When the base camp was pulling out, who was hosing down the road?
Yeah,
Pickens County's water truck.
that's pretty. It
There's
makes
not
me cry
one
still.
Eagle representative here except for at the meetings when a commissioner showed up.
And I made a homemade cherry pie for those firehouse guys. I totally. I mean, as I said, this is a valley. It's just as a county commissioner, it's hard for me. I'm in a really difficult seat here because I have to think about the fiduciary responsibility I have for the current taxpayers in Pickens County.
We respect all that.
And that's
We
tough.
do.
So, and I'm not really a numbers person, but in this case, I need numbers.
Yeah, we're certainly not to the point, and you're not in a position to take action today. We appreciate your time and attention. We've got this to a level that we, frankly, after spinning it around a number of times, we're at a level we've never gotten to before. And we'd like to keep the discussion, keep it open. Obviously, we do have to have a serious discussion with Eagle County and find out exactly where they're headed. We will keep you apprised of that and your staff apprised. Hopefully, we can find a way to get this to the ballot.
Well, and on a quick side note here, I want to invite you to an opening of our new building. Since
yeah.
it's the new Pickens County Administration and Sheriff's Office. It's right between the courthouse and the jail. It'll be opening on August the 7th from 10 a.m. to 2 with lunch and music and presentations and a grand tour. It's a beautiful building, and we're very proud of it. So
Thank you.
everybody's invited. You'll get a special invitation to the Basalt Town Council. Yeah. Anything else, Tim? Because we still have.
I think that covers it.
No.
I'm, maybe I shouldn't say these things, but one of the things, we've struggled with that whole question about buying the buildings.
Like, oh gosh.
The reality is, we've already paid for them. It's the taxpayers who pay for them.
Right.
And, we're paying for Eagle County Airport, and we don't use Eagle County Airport by and large. So, I think ultimately, in the way these kinds of things tend to work out, even though it may seem incredulous, you kind of have to drop the fact that, yes, it was ours, but no, it wasn't paid for by the county government.
Right.
It was paid by the taxpayers who lived there.
But trust me, the county government will make my county, Pickens County taxpayers pay to buy it back. Yeah, at some level, so we just have to bring that into the,
It's an issue we're aware of and we need to address, and we're happy to do that and gather the financial information, but I think sometimes, you know, some of these things have to resolve around the fact that a lot of money has already been spent, and we suffer a huge amount of impacts down there around that.
know.
And hopefully we
Tough.
can share those impacts within the valley rather than, you know, out of the valley.
and by the way, it was the town of Eagle, it was his fire chief that did that backburn and saved that whole community. I met with him this weekend.
Well,
and quite
that's
amazing.
not what I heard. That's okay.
A great guy. All right, so thank you all for coming.
Thanks.
Thanks, good to see you.
Continued conversation.
So board, we,
That was the fire district. It wasn't.
right, it was the fire district.
Their,
It wasn't
their
the
county
town.
manager was at the meetings as well. I saw him, talk to him.
Yeah, Jeff Schroll was there. Jeff's actually a great guy. So we're scheduled for a break. Do you guys want to just keep moving? Because we've got staff right in the new building that
They're
can run
ready, we're
across
ready.
for. So,
Thanks for
residents, we're
coming.
going to keep going. We're going to go to prep for our Garfield County meeting, which is scheduled for August the 14th. So I don't know, I don't really have any issues for
The items that we have are really kudos
Oh, good,
to
okay.
Garfield County.
Let's get them to take that chunk Eagle can.
So we've had a few projects working through Garfield County. One was they're participating in assisting the financing of the Mountain Family Health Center. With certificates of participation, they didn't have collateral for their financing, and
so-
Garfield County is putting one of their buildings up as
So we're just going to talk about that as just a point of discussion, or?
a point of saying thank you.
Okay.
We appreciate, so they're supporting Mid-Valley on doing
I think we need to
that.
put that on as a big thank you to the gentleman from Garfield County.
Why John Peacock's not here today is we have a broadband grant application to DOLA. We are working together with Thor. And then the fire support, both participating in the Mid-Valley Lake Christine Fire and offering us office space when we were at risk of the power failure. And they opened up and said, yep, we have space for you. What do you need? So we
Those are three great points, because, generally, when we meet with Garfield County, we don't have the opportunity to say, look at how we've been cooperating and collaborating. And I think that would be a real change. The biggest change is the three Garfield County commissioners are coming to Pickens County, to our new building for this meeting. And I've been meeting with them for many, many years, and that's a first. So that's a big thank you. Thank you for coming to see our new building, and we'll make sure they have a tour of the new facility while they're here. Do you gentlemen have any other items you can think of might want to talk to Garfield about, or should we?
On the line of thanking them, I'd like to understand a little bit more about the fire mitigation response that they've had, the warnings about fire, if they had a stage 2 ban. I think it came in, I think we worked fairly well in concert.
Fireworks.
Fireworks is an issue that, I thought maybe they had a stage 2 ban, yet I also heard there was a fireworks stand.
They did have a stage 2 ban. They enacted it just before we enacted ours, but they did not disallow the sale of fireworks because they felt that people were already here and set up with all of their product, and they didn't think it was fair to those business owners. If any point of discussion, it would be to ask them if maybe in the future they could just not allow fireworks until I guess we're gonna have drought for many years to come, so. But we want to make sure they feel welcome when they're here. No fireworks in the room, Greg, please. But Steve, do you have any?
The CCI Legislative Priority Committee meeting is this Friday, so when we meet with the Garfield Commissioners, we will know what the CCI priorities will be for this coming year. And there could be items on there that would be things that we could work with Garfield
going?
areas of common interest. Now, I don't know what they are at this point, but,
Will you be at that meeting?
well, it's a
Friday?
phone-in meeting, and actually, I I'm gonna have to decide because I'm supposed to be at another meeting at the same time, so
Well, and Rachel's gone, so we're going to need to find out what comes,
maybe Kara could phone in on that meeting.
just so we can find out what comes out of that meeting.
Can you get that information to me, Steve?
Yeah, I will, and it's this
Okay.
Friday from 9 till noon. It's a phone-in meeting. I
Okay.
mean, there will be people there in Denver at the meeting, but
Because we could bring this back next Tuesday, once we have some idea what those items might be, to see if there's anything that we feel is of mutual discussion value. It's a good idea, Steve.
I would love to just hear from them on what their initiatives are around mental health. Mental health, first aid is something I'm very interested in. I know things are happening down there. If there's a way to get an update on what are we doing about our, we're in the suicide belt. They're in the suicide belt with us, as it's called, for this region of Colorado.
Well, and it'd be interesting to see what their relationship with Mine Springs has been, because I
Right.
hear that it's been pretty good up our end of the valley, and there might be some areas to
That's
be
a
discussed.
great question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But we have some time, so maybe George has some idea when he gets back with RAFTA questions too, to see where they stand on the RAFTA mill levy. Because I know, it's only gonna be in Garfield County, it's not gonna be in, it's not gonna be it's not gonna be in Garfield County, it's only gonna be in Glenwood Springs. But let's see, we can pick George's brain on Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay. So do we have an applicant here before us? So since we're early, and thank you for being early,
Thanks.
we can go to that. Thank
Are you done, Laura? Nice to see you.
So, Laura, I
Long
just-
time.
Thank you. I
Oh,
told
yes.
Rye I would send a text over quickly when we know what time. Thank you. Thanks for being here for that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
All the way across the quad. So this is a grant application. I mean, this is a grant application. We're giving away money. This is a citizen board interview, Molly Brooks, for our Citizen Grant Review Committee. We do have one more opening on that committee. So if you'd please introduce our candidate here.
Okay, is this on?
It's red light is on,
Okay, that means it's on?
and it needs to be kind of directed. Red light means it's on.
Okay.
And Molly, you can just swivel this so it comes right at you. Perfect.
I'm Lisa Yorker with the Healthy Community Fund, and this is Molly Brooks, who just applied for our last position that's available on the board. And what else would you like to know?
We can turn it to Molly. Molly, thank you for applying. We truly appreciate people who are interested in our volunteer boards at the county level. And just to start it off, why would you be interested in the Citizen Grant Review Board?
Well, I was in the Aspen Citizens Academy this past fall, and I learned quite a bit about how things work and who's in charge, and we met everybody, and it was just so interesting to me, and that made me super curious about becoming involved on a local level, and I mean on this level in local government. So that's one reason why. It also really is something I'm interested in learning about nonprofits and the work that they do in the Valley. And I have raised my 3 kids here. They're all going off to college this fall. So it's a great opportunity for me time-wise to put my energy back into this community that I really think's amazing, and have raised all my kids here. And so it's a good way for me to be involved.
So you just so you know, because your kids are all 3 going off to college, what's the time frame for? Because this committee meets like big all at one time.
Yeah, we just discussed before. I gave her the dates, and I send out the dates prior to anything going on, and she's available for all of it, because we have the 6 weeks of reading, and then you have the 2 to 3 nights of just hashing it out, and we meet together as a group, and she is available for all that. So
I am.
Okay, thanks. Greg, please.
Molly, I'm so grateful that you come in to apply for this, and it was such a pleasure to read your application, because you've had an involvement, a finger in so many different organizations here already. So I feel like you know our community well. That comes across. And I guess the question I have is, do you think you'll be able to objectively scrutinize applications that come across? And I understand we get the full range in price, in amounts, as well as in quality of the application, yet so many of them are worthy, they all need scrutiny. And I'm just wondering, is that something you're excited about doing?
Well, I am. I think I am definitely capable of doing that, I might have to recuse myself from the ones that I am involved with. I don't know
How many are you still involved with? Just, is this?
all those. Yes.
Well, I mean, as a member, or you're not a board member, but like a member, you're a supporter of ACES, or are you on their board?
I know I'm a supporter of ACES,
Right,
but
okay.
as far as like Aspen Public Radio and Rocky Mountain Institute, I'm on a couple of their like National Solutions Council and what's the other one called? They have all these names for them, but National Council, I guess, for Aspen Public Radio. And then I'm on the Jazz Aspen Advisory Board. So I don't know. I mean, it just depends, I guess, on who applies for grants and as to who, I have to sort of.
Right.
Yeah, because some of those may be partner.
There are a couple of them, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's something, and we're really careful with conflicts, so if there's any questions, we can always refer you to the county attorney's office just for advice. We try and, we know
Okay.
it's a small town,
Right.
so we have
Well,
those
I don't
issues.
want to cause any conflict. That definitely does not.
We hit it off at the
We will
pass.
help you to not do that.
Okay. The reason why I would like to do this is to try to be helpful and proactive.
But that's a good question, and we are more than willing and to be helpful in guidance for that.
Okay.
Steve?
I think a way around that, and we all run into it because we're involved in other things too, and number one, if there is a potential conflict, you reveal that to the other members on the committee. Just be open about it and say, I'm a member of this group. But then at the same time, we have to sort of detach ourselves from that and try to look on all sides of an issue and decide the best thing, irregardless of whether we personally like a group or what they stand for or are a member of it. So that's one way to deal with it, that you have to learn to be objective and take a fair view and not let any prejudice that you are a member of this or on the board, that you can't be objective about it. That being said, then you might at some point need to recuse yourself on a decision about something or other, possibly.
I'll just do whatever Lisa tells me to do.
And probably not, because usually that's
A lot of pressure on you.
if one of us has a financial, a decision could affect us financially, that would be a thing where then we would recuse ourselves. Or if we were so heavily emotionally involved in something that we can't be objective about it, then that would be another case too.
Well, currently we only fund one of them, so
Okay.
it shouldn't be a big problem.
Well,
So now a question for you, since I'm sort of the same thing, a perpetual volunteer, and I have always done a lot my whole life. So you spend a lot of time already working on different things, and do you feel you have enough energy? Your time, it looks like you'll have the time because it's concentrated in a shorter period of time, but do you sort of have the energy to take on one more thing?
yes, definitely I do. I think I'm getting ready to also take on a house restoration in North Carolina. So what I'll be doing is going back and forth, but the time frame works out great because I'm here in August and I'm here in September when
That's when we need her. So.
when we meet. So yes, I'm going to say yes.
Also, if you've raised 3 kids and they're all gone, you're gonna have a big
You won't
empty.
know what to do with your free time.
You're gonna have all this energy you don't know what to do with.
Well, I know. That's right. I think I'll have a lot of time. I like to be busy and I have a lot of interests and I like to be really productive. And so, like I said, really doing the Aspen Citizens Academy was something I sort of enrolled in last year, looking ahead, because knowing that all my kids would be going off. And I've been a full-time mother, and, so I thought, well, what am I going to do with all that energy? But yes, I'm going to say I hope to pursue other interests, but this would be one of them.
Okay.
So I have to ask, are they all 3 going away for the first time, or it's just the last ones following the other 2?
Yes, they've all been from preschool through Aspen High School, and the last one just graduated. The older 2 are at University of Denver, and the youngest one's going to University of Boulder, Colorado Boulder.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're keeping them here in Colorado?
So yes, I'm really happy about keeping them in the state,
Yeah.
for sure.
For lots of reasons, you're happy for
Right.
keeping them in
I
the-
tried to get them to go to North Carolina. We've seen every college there, but they didn't want to do that, so that's okay.
So we have any other questions? I think it's a great opportunity for you. It's a learning experience. It's a good group. We've got the 2 youth kids, the high school kids that sit on this now. And I guess you guys, it's a lot of work, but you have a lot of fun.
Exactly, and then I told her throughout the year we may, we contact them with their opinion on certain things, but it's not like
Things
they're
come up.
obliged to have big, long meetings like our September ones,
Yeah.
so.
And again, we really appreciate your applying, and we should be getting back to you soon because I think you have a deadline coming up for.
Yes, a big one.
Yeah.
The one.
So do you have any questions for us?
Let's see. I don't really think so. I think mostly it was just making sure I could manage it time-wise with the things that I'd like to be doing. But it sounds like it could be a really great fit for me and a great opportunity. So I don't think I really do.
Your kids will be proud, Mom.
We'll see. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions? No, we're
That's
good.
good. I'm
All right,
good.
we'll get
Thank
back to you as soon
Thanks.
as
Nice to meet
possible.
you.
We'll be
you.
making a decision
appreciate it.
shortly.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Okay, board still really ready to go on? So we have future agendas. Do we have any items from Mr. Peacock, who's on his way to Cortez for the DOLA meeting?
Future agendas. Charlotte doesn't have anything in the notes.
I have a question. I don't see when our meeting with Lake County is on here. Does anybody have it in their own calendars? I don't. 'Cause I know we have one coming up.
I thought we discussed that. I'll see if I can pull it up here. If
Yeah,
it's
but
here
maybe
yet.
it's on my paper calendar.
No, we discussed that
For
last
some reason,
week.
I thought it was
I
coming
have
up.
the 28th of August on my calendar.
Oh, it's the end of the month, okay. Oh, that's July, August. Oh, yes, you're right. All right, good. I just want to make sure we weren't missing something there. So I am good to go on future agendas. Does anybody have any questions?
I'm good.
Good.
All right. So next, we have open discussion. Do you, Phyllis, or Mr. Peacock have any open discussion items for
I
us?
do have, well, there was the appointment for the citizen boards.
We've already talked, I talked with Charlotte this morning. We had appointed Carson and we had appointed Molly. No, not Molly, Barb. Barbara Reed. Would we like to make an appointment now? We could make an appointment. We have no other applicants for the citizens review.
No, this was the last applicant that we have for the citizen.
I'd support it.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah, perfect.
It's great to,
then-
to have somebody come in who
Yeah, I think she'll be
has
great.
been a member of almost everything.
She's amazing. Yeah, I think she'll be, it should be a great
She's great.
addition.
Yeah.
Charlotte will prepare the resolution
For
for
next week.
next week.
Perfect.
And she'll take care of all those.
Great.
And that's all she had.
No other open discussion? I'd asked about a letter. Rachel had sent us from Boston, had sent us a thing about preserving Medicare, Social Security. Did anybody else get that? She sent it to all of us, I thought. And we were gonna see about Kara doing a letter. How about if I just send it on to you if I can find it?
Perfect.
The board have any other?
In terms of the move,
Excuse me.
the move into our new building, is there any updates on anything we need to know that have come up that we need to be aware of?
Nothing that we found out. I'd say the IT people are roaming around the building, making sure computers are working and things are hooked up and you found all your things. One thing when we moved into the building, because of how we identified them, you had your pile of boxes in your space. So that was interesting to just, and they were opened nonetheless, because nothing's worse than not having a knife, because I know my knife was in the box when I packed it. So they opened all your boxes and
Makes it tough.
things like getting our Comcast TV set up. So, Charlotte will usually email me during the middle of a meeting if there's a question that the board has. I'm not sure that that's set up. I'm sure she can watch it on her computer. But we do have a TV in our administrative office, like we always did, so we can watch CGTV. So that's really helpful.
Access cards.
Access cards,
Jeanette is working on them for us, and Jody said we'll get them when we get them.
the building's open from 8 to 5. So if you're accessing during that time, there's not a need for that. I don't have mine yet.
Now, we'll be getting the access cards or something at some point?
That's what I just said. We'll be getting our little tags when Jeanette's working on them, and Jody said we'd get them when we get them. So hopefully sometime this week.
So they're processing a lot. Today was the first setup day for administration and finance and the folks that had been in Basalt. I think tomorrow is sheriff and assessor, but it's the beginning of this week with our building really being open on Thursday.
Hopefully.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Congratulations on the
So-
move. For me, it was painless. I'm sure it was pretty busy for everyone else, but
To realize that we'd been out of Aspen for a year and 11 months was pretty amazing. It was around,
I think the biggest challenge now for staff is where to remember to go have lunch. 'Cause they got so used to having places so close by, now they're like, okay, what do we do? Where do we go? We forgot.
for me, it was which bus are you getting on? And
Yeah.
got on an express, which lets out at Locals Corner.
Right
which is
here, and
nice.
walk across the street.
So,
right,
Yeah.
that's nice. That's nice. Well, yeah, I think I'm very excited. This will be great.
the building looks great. There's still some punch lists. There's still a scaffold on the third floor, so you
have to
can't
take the
use the
elevator.
stairs to the third floor. But it's
I have
all
a
working.
question that we can drill and do later, but regarding energy efficiency, are we going to have a monitor? Will we understand?
Oh, the coolest thing in the lobby, across from Catherine's, when you come into the lobby, turn to the immediate right on the wall, there's a whole thing that shows you all the buildings in the county and what they're doing energy-wise.
Excellent.
That's what we did with the
So
core grant.
there'll be an
Right.
option coming up if and when the solar farm happens. There'll be an option to have our energy for these buildings produced entirely locally, which would be pretty amazing.
Some issues with the solar farm right now.
And we do have that on our website, so you can
You
check
can pull it
that.
up there too, but
Excellent.
if you walk in, there's a screen right there on the wall. It's really cool.
We'll say the commissioner's room looks really nice. It wasn't set up, but just looking in and seeing the dais, it's,
And we had a
Nice.
problem with the screen and you'd have a screen and monitor, so I had to make a call the other day, which size screen, and the price difference was almost double, to go from 89 to 96 or something. So, because we have to remember, and I think you were the one who said, let's wire it. Somebody said, let's wire that just in case we have to put television up. They couldn't get a clear picture with the projector and monitor. So we're doing a television screen, which will be
better.
right behind. And so that will be coming. And then the other two screens are up, and so we're concerned about the public being able to see this one. But the public can always turn their head, because the screens that are right here, we just have to be careful of them bumping their heads.
on those screens.
I have to keep an eye out for that.
Really?
And the meeting room is, people are gonna expect a room this big. It is small, but it is comfortable, and with the doors open, we can put chairs out into the front lobby, and they'll be able to watch everything just like they were sitting in the room, or they can go to the Roaring Fork room, the overflow room right next door, and everything will be televised live right there. So, yeah, it's great.
So that was exciting. Yesterday, John Peacock and I also attended the long-term recovery meeting for the Lake Christine fire. That was a great learning opportunity for us of all the agencies that are involved. This fire was on private property, BLM, state property, and Forest Service, which is where it's still burning, way up in the high country. For us, we use the emergency support functions, and I'm the lead on long-term recovery. So it was a really great education for me to see all the different components. How do you put it together? The BEAR team that's going to come, which is a burn area emergency
Recovery?
Restoration?
It might be recovery
Or
on
remediation?
and it's to evaluate the soils and the slopes and what might be happening, weather, what we're looking at. Not Far Service, the National Weather Service had representatives there from
And
Grand
they'll
Junction.
also look at the roads that they had to cut for emergency access, for the power lines and for other issues. And they will be looking at the hand dug lines to see which ones can stay, which ones should go, which ones should be deeper, which one, all that.
Also, I'm
there's
sure
even-
the power line mitigation, it'd be nice to have an update on how that's going.
It is moving along
Power li-
extremely well.
Because I live in Blue Lake and drive by where they were activating all their
Staging?
crews, where they were staging, there were no crews staging there. There were no trucks there this morning. So I'm thinking they might be
They
pretty
moved-
close to complete, or
I heard from people that not only were they going up in those helicopters with the power poles to set in a hole that had been augured in, they had guys that were rappelling from the helicopter to guide the pole. I'm like, are you kidding me? I guess it was just amazing.
well, I noticed the trucks weren't on the hill because you could see where they were working on one big power pole where there were 4 trucks parked.
Every once in a while you catch a glimmer too when you're driving up Valley.
Drives home the critical nature of that power system right there, and how turns out, one fire could do so much damage to the entire, the potential for the entire valley. So it kind of brings up questions about energy resilience and independence too.
Well, to tell you, ironically, probably in my late second term or early first term, I was in Washington, D.C. a lot with Northwest COG, meeting about bark beetle and the health of our forest. Specifically, we made a trip back to FEMA and went into the FEMA new offices, which were in a Catholic girls' school that had been converted into the FEMA offices, which was an interesting place to be walking through these stained glass windows, in the FEMA office, trying to get them to give us emergency funding prior to the emergency to mitigate for healthy forests underneath major power line sources that cross the whole Rocky Mountain range. And so what is the one issue that comes home to us is a power line possible massive failure from a wildfire. And it wasn't bark beetle, it was just the nature of that forest up there, which was mostly juniper pinyon.
And ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just so dry.
Well, on that topic, I'm expecting and hoping that we see Valerie McDonald in here again once things have calmed down a bit, with a recap, and then also an assessment.
Yeah, let's put her down for some future.
An assessment of, and maybe just to reassure the public that we still have assets available, as I understand it, for fire mitigation. We've got a chipper available, or at least funding, because we still have neighborhoods in the Upper Valley and the Mid Valley that could do some serious fire mitigation. And
So some of the neighbors on the Cozy Point side of your homeowners association,
yeah.
you can hardly see their house through the trees.
Right. And I understand that the state funding for fire mitigation is reduced now, but the county actually has some, at least to cover the cost of the chipper. So we cut our own trees out, and we can at least chip them on site.
Through the sheriff and the fire department, I think it's.
That's something Valerie can talk to us about.
between the fires, they're going to take the opportunity to talk about mitigation as this moves forward.
Excellent. Yeah.
Nothing like
I'm on board with that.
And then at the Northwest COG meeting, which is here in the end of August, will be in our new building. What we're going to do, and I'll make sure that everybody knows, because it'd be great if the board would all come. We're going to talk. We're going to have presenters from the golf course fire in Grand County, presenters from the Silverthorne fire, presenters, of course, from the Lake Christine fire. Within our jurisdiction, major fires, we might have somebody coming over to talk about the wildfires that they had previously in Walden, the Beaver Creek fire, which was in Walden and Jackson County. Just lessons learned and
What are the dates on that?
It's the last Thursday, the first Thursday of August.
The
So
30th?
the 30th, maybe? Yeah,
Last Thursday's 30th.
yeah. But I'll make sure when
I'll
we
get it on
move
the
forward to that.
Great.
And it'll be in our new building. So, and I think John Peacock and maybe Valerie will speak at that for Pickens County. Just, we don't have a lot to say since, again, but what we were seeing from Pickens County side of it because of the jurisdictional boundary.
it was really close.
I literally would get up a couple times during the night and flip my light on next to my bed to make sure we still had power. And then go back to sleep, flip it on, go back to sleep.
One of the things from the long-term recovery, because of the concern for the rivers and what's going to be coming down those drainages and ending up in the frying pan in the
Right.
Roaring Fork. So the Roaring Fork Conservancy started I think it's a first response for rivers, I think is what it's called. And so that's going to be a fundraising organization specific for this fire and any mitigation. Forest Service, Scott Fitzwilliams was there and very concerned about funding. So
I
when you're
think they
talking
had a
about that-
fundraiser already and raised a significant amount of money.
They happen to have their annual gala. That's their big fundraiser at the Dellenbach Ranch, which is only 2 miles up the frying pan,
Right.
where the fire was burning way up above. And they raised $100,000 for first responders
97,000.
at that.
And that's
event.
that's
In
separate
addition
from the
to-
fire,
separate
the river
fr-
response.
And separate from their annual gala, that's their annual big fundraiser. So separate from that, they raised those funds.
Great. That's great.
So
Very
And-
important.
there's some great videos out on YouTube that have been made. There was one that the Type 2 team was thanking the community and how thanked they felt by the community for what they did. And I thought it was pretty cool. At the end of one of them, they had a credit running of all the response
I was
agencies.
at that meeting.
That was really interesting to see how many, the hot shots, the Forest Service responders,
All the different levels.
the different local fire departments that were there.
Well, and the incident command guy had to sit down. He was so emotional, it's to make me cry. He had to sit down. He had tears welling up in his eyes. This guy had just run this massive emergency. And when they were all done, I got up and spoke for Pickens County, just thanking them for, for all they did, but also saying that Pickens County had a presence in the room. We were here backing up our neighbors, our community, our valley. But they've said over and over again, we've heard it, that they worked in communities across the country, but they have never worked with a community that rallied across jurisdictional, political boundaries, neighbors to neighbors, and he said, this is gonna be a fire, it's really hard for us to leave. And he also
Yeah.
said, they're leaving having gained weight.
Well, that's
So,
good.
yeah, it was
That's
amazing.
good.
So anything else?
That's it.
Why don't we take 15, and I will call Rye and let him know.
Great.
Grassroots, I think that's it for our agenda, right?
Let's see, we need to go into executive
Oh,
session.
yeah, thank you. We need to call a special meeting. Thank you, Steve, I would have forgotten to do that. We're gonna need a motion to go to executive session for the purposes of Basalt Vista Project, which is CRS 246402 for E, Code Enforcement, Windstar Conservation Easement, Ajax Valley View Litigation Update, CRS 246402 for B.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion of a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. We are in exec. Grassroots, thank you very much.
Well done. Another